Mathematically, what you are witnessing shouldn't happen in the lifetime of the universe. We are looking at a sigma 10 event, a statistical impossibility that is manifested in reality. In the last 72 hours, $15 trillion of wealth has been effectively deleted from the global ledger. Gold has plummeted, silver has collapsed by nearly a third, and the digital asset markets are bleeding out $500 billion in real time. But here is the terrifying paradox. Wealth does not simply evaporate, it changes hands. If you are staring at a sea of red on your screens, you are looking at the smoke, not the fire. You need to stop panicking over the numbers and start asking where the value went. Because while the retail investor is paralyzed by shock, the system itself is executing a forced liquidation event in a vacuum. This was not a natural market correction, it was a mechanical slaughter. To understand the violence of this move, you have to look beyond the headline numbers and into the plumbing of the financial system. We saw liquidity holes open up, literal air pockets in the order books where buyers simply cease to exist. When an asset crashes through a support level and finds zero friction, that is not selling pressure, that is a liquidity withdrawal. The exit doors were welded shut while the building was set on fire. The algorithms hunted specific leverage points with surgical precision, targeting the psychological break-even lines of the world's largest institutional holders. They pushed the price to within a fraction of a percent of total capitulation, testing the structural integrity of the entire leverage stack. This was a stress test, masquerading as a crash. But you cannot view this crypto and metals bloodbath in isolation. It is the shockwave from a detonation that occurred days prior. The catalyst was a failure in the banking sector, a mid-sized institution collapsing under the weight of duration risk. In a fragile hyper-leveraged system, the size of the domino doesn't matter, only its position in the line. This failure sent a freeze signal through the interbank lending markets. Credit lines tightened instantly. When hedge funds and speculators face a sudden liquidity crisis, they do not sell what they want to sell. They sell what they can sell. They liquidate the most liquid assets first. They dump gold. They dump silver. And on the weekend, when the traditional markets are shuttered, they use crypto as an ATM. This explains the correlation. It wasn't a repudiation of the asset. It was a desperate scramble for cash. And amidst this chaotic liquidation, we find the smoking gun. The entity controlling the futures market raised margin requirements on silver by nearly 50% in the middle of the freefall. Imagine a high-stakes poker game where the house suddenly demands double the buy-in while you are holding a losing hand. The speculators were forced to fold. And who was waiting on the other side of the table? The banking giants. The data reveals that as the retail speculator was flushed out, the largest custodial banks were closing their short positions at the absolute bottom. They used the margin hike to engineer a discount, effectively transferring wealth from the leveraged hands of the public to the fortified balance sheets of the institution. This was a transfer mechanism. The paper market was used to smash the price to facilitate physical accumulation. We know this is a manipulation of reality because of the glaring disconnect between West and East. While the paper price in New York screams sell, the physical market in Shanghai is screaming shortage. The premium for physical metal in the East has blown out to over 40%. If this were a genuine sell-off, physical bars will be flooding the market. Instead, they are vanishing. The arbitrage looped the mechanism that keeps global prices in sync as snapped. Traders cannot buy cheap paper in the West and sell expensive physical in the East because the inventory required to close that loop simply does not exist. The paper market is trading digital ghosts, while the physical market is hoarding reality. While the algorithms were draining trillions from the economy, the public was conveniently distracted. The airwaves were flooded with geopolitical scandals and terrifying headlines about escalating global conflict. In the world of systemic finance, there are no coincidences, only timing. The oldest trick in the magician's handbook is misdirection. They wave the bright red flag of war with the left hand so you do not notice the right hand reaching into your pocket. The geopolitical narrative was used to grease the skids for the crash. When the drums of war beat, the textbook says, buy gold. But the institutional reality is that war threatens leverage. When the threat becomes kinetic, the smart money moves to cash to survive the margin calls. They use the fear of war to induce a flight to the dollar, allowing them to buy hard assets for pennies on the dollar. This brings us to the cold, hard truth of supply and demand that the paper market is trying to hide. We are confusing the map with the territory. The spot price is merely a receipt. It is not the meal. If you strip away the financial engineering, you are left with a geological and industrial crisis. The solar industry is no longer just a sector. It is a black hole for silver. The shift to newer, more efficient photovoltaic cells has increased silver consumption per panel by 50%. We're taking a monetary metal and spreading it microns thick on glass, cementing it to rooftops for 20 years, and eventually burying it in landfills. The silver is not being stored, it is being consumed. It is deleted from the ledger of humanity, but solar is just the appetizer. The main course is the electrification of the entire global infrastructure. The AI revolution is not just code, it is hardware. It is massive data centers, high-performance computing, and the Internet of Things. Silver is the most conductive element known to man. It is non-negotiable in high-end electronics. Every electric vehicle, every smart switch, every 5G relay station is a permanent drain on global stockpiles. This demand is perfectly inelastic. If the price of silver triples, Apple and Tesla will not stop making products. They will pay any price because the metal is a fraction of their total cost, but it is essential to the function. They are not selling into this crash, they are panicking in private and securing supply chains. Then there's the demand vector that no one discusses on the evening news: kinetic consumption. Modern warfare is silver intensive. Guidance systems, avionics, satellites, and the batteries and torpedoes all rely on this metal. Strategic weapon systems require silver zinc batteries because they can sit on a shelf for decades and work instantly when fired. Every time a missile is launched, every time a drone is intercepted, that silver is vaporized into dust. It is scattered across oceans and deserts, never to be recovered. The strategic stockpiles of the past are gone. The military is now competing with the solar manufacturer and the retail investor for the same shrinking pie. On the supply side, the cliff is steep and unforgiving. The easy metal has already been mined. We are now scratching at the earth for lower and lower grades. The primary producing nations are fraught with political instability, nationalization threats, and labor strikes. You cannot simply flip a switch and produce more silver. It takes a decade to bring a new mine online. Even if the price skyrocketed tomorrow, the supply response would take years to materialize. We are trapped in a geological reality where 70% of silver comes as a byproduct of base metal mining. If the global economy slows down and demand for lead and zinc drops, silver production falls with it. It is a perverse supply squeeze that tightens even as the economy weakens. So we stand at the precipice of a broken market. On one side, a casino of paper derivatives trading billions of ounces that do not exist, leveraged 500 to 1. On the other side, a physical reality where industry, war, and technology are vacuuming up every available ounce. The rubber band has stretched to its breaking point. When the snapback occurs, it will not be a gentle drift higher. It will be a violent gap. You will wake up to find the market is gone, no offer. The price will be irrelevant because there will be no metal available to buy. This is what a failed market looks like. The paper price crashes to flush out the weak hands, while the physical metal moves from the impatient to the ruthless. We're watching a replay of history accelerated by algorithmic execution. The bank failure, the margin hikes, the geopolitical fear, these are all components of a highly ordered extraction of value. The system is trying to shake you out. They want your shares, they want your coins, and most of all, they want your metal. They printed a fake price to scare you into handing it over. We are facing two timelines for the immediate future. In one, the bear trap springs, and we see a V-shaped recovery as the East forces the West to cover into a vacuum. In the other, the contagion spreads, and cash becomes the only shield against a systemic credit freeze. But regardless of which timeline plays out in the next 24 hours, the endgame remains the same. The disconnect between paper promises and physical scarcity cannot last. When the dust settles on this $15 trillion crime scene, the only thing that will matter is what you actually hold. Do not be fooled by the flickering lights on the screen. They are a simulation designed to govern your emotions. Look at the weight in your hand. That is the only truth left in a world of financial fiction. The window to act is closing, and the transfer of wealth is almost complete.